Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. Me and Chet Martin here, joined as always by the Long Island redneck Brian Bro.
Love my president.
And the fearless one, CV Burton.
You can't always get what you want, but if you try some time, you just might find you need freedom on deck.
Oh, yeah. Got a good show coming up for you folks today. And we got a couple good guests coming up as well. We have Carla D'Addesi. She's from Culture of Life 1972. It's a pro-life clothing line. Okay, so I don't know. I kind of want to say it's the Chick-fil-A of clothing lines.
Awesome.
Okay, and she's going to be talking with us live from Washington, D.C., because she's at the March for Life. And
That's
there
great.
to listen to President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence.
I love the fact, like you listen to Mike Gallagher and stuff, and he talks a lot about like AMAC instead of the AARP. There's got to be more. There's got to be more revealing to the general public about what companies stand for what, so that people can support the companies that they want.
Good point. And there, here on 94.9, there's a lot of commercials where you have alternate conservative companies that you can buy from. Mm-hmm. Even with Dana Lash, she talks a lot about that Patriot phone mobile company, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And also later we're going to have Josh and Nicole Landers from Parent to Parent coming on by, and they're going to be talking about the Obama era policies that came to an end, and also Sheriff Scott Israel getting the can.
Bye-bye.
We're going to talk a little bit about Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't want the president to make his State of the Union address, which is scheduled for the 29th. But on the 17th, the president wrote Miss Pelosi a letter because Miss Pelosi was planning a trip. Brian, why don't you read it for the listeners?
So on the 16th, she came out and said what she had to say about him not doing this, the State of the Union. And the very next day, he said, "Dear Madam Speaker, due to the shutdown, I am sorry to inform you that your trip to Brussels, Egypt, and Afghanistan has been postponed. We will reschedule this 7-day excursion when the shutdown is over. In light of the 800,000 great American workers not receiving pay, I am sure you would agree that postponing this public relation event is totally appropriate. I also feel that during this period, it would be better if you were in Washington negotiating with me and joining the strong border security movement to end the shutdown. Obviously, if you would like to make your journey by flying commercial, that would certainly be your prerogative. I look forward to seeing you soon, and even more forward to watching our open and dangerous southern border finally receive the attention, funding, and security it so desperately deserves. Sincerely, Donald J. Trump."
Troll level achieved.
Troll level infinity.
Yeah. When do you think the last time Nancy Pelosi flew coach?
Oh, dude, that is awesome.
I want to talk about something else that happened with Miss Pelosi. On Tuesday, a group of angel moms, if you don't know what angel moms are, they are mothers of victims to illegal alien violence. They've lost their children. And on Tuesday afternoon, they protested inside Capitol Hill office of Miss Pelosi in California, and she refused to meet them. There were a lot of angel mothers there with posters of their children. They were also inside the office of Miss Pelosi, and she had them escorted out of the premises and refused to meet with them. And
isn't she awesome?
Yeah, she's great. I really I think she's such a class act. And one of the angel mothers said, it's a slap, it's a stab, it's a kick in the gut, in the groin. This woman's name is Sabine Durden, whose son Dominic was struck dead in 2012 by an illegal alien. And she was saying this of Miss Pelosi and other Democrats, and they were eventually forced to leave. And they were joined by Trump supporters such as the Trump Choir, if you guys know who they are.
How come when, what was it, Jeff Flake was cornered, in the elevator and harassed and whatnot in the Capitol building, I didn't see anybody carrying them away.
No.
I don't remember. I mean, maybe that happened afterwards.
Well, I think they were probably brought there by the Democrats.
Yeah.
And I think Jeff Flake was brought there by the Democrats, too, that day.
Well, he is a flake.
You see, if Nancy would have met with the angel moms, then she would have had to admit that she has been wrong all this time. She can't have that.
Well, what would she say to a room full of parents who have lost their children or loved ones to death by illegals who are in the country, and not, a lot of the times it's not like an accidental thing where, they were issued a license by a state and they got into a fender bender. No, most of the time it's DWI, it's blatant murder, it's, it's finding a gun under a bench and shooting somebody.
Aiming for the seal,
but you hit the girl.
Right.
It's this type of thing. It's an officer being gunned down in the streets.
Son of a legal immigrant,
right.
Officer.
What would she have to say to them that would
alleviate their pain?
That would bolster her opinion on no border wall.
Well, here's
no security, on keeping the government shut down, on not honoring their children's death.
Well, here's the question. How does it make her look bad, even if she has and sticks to her positions to meet with them? Even if she went there.
She's a coward.
There you go. Mm-hmm. She's a coward.
She believes in security when it comes to wearing Depends. Would she leave the house without wearing her Depends? No.
Now, it gets more offensive. Outside of the Capitol, the day after the Angel Mothers protested with Miss Pelosi, Democrat Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and his fellow Democrats had the nerve to hold up posters of government employees that are missing their paychecks this week, as they will eventually receive them. Schumer stated, "I want President Trump to look into these faces and see what he is doing by using these men and women as pawns, using them in an extortion game." You know what? What a disingenuous SOB.
How can you even compare?
That's what you see, and he said that that's not what he was trying to do, but that's exactly what he was doing.
Exactly.
The day after, for him to show up with posters of people that aren't getting paychecks and comparing it to Americans that have lost their lives to illegal aliens.
Yep. Then
is sickening.
Then he says he didn't mean it that way. Well, then how did you mean it, Chucky? How did you mean it?
Well, Rep. Mo Brooks, he went to the floor of the House and he blasted his Democrat colleagues over their lack of interest in protesting Americans from illegal aliens. And Brooks told the story of, and I want everybody to hear about this, Oralia Mendoza, who's a legal Hispanic citizen of the United States of America, and her 13-year-old granddaughter, Maria Lopez. They're from Alabama, and the members of the MS-13 street gang entered their home, stabbed Aurelia to death while forcing Mariah to watch, and then beheaded her granddaughter. That's what's happening in our country. And for Chuckle Boys Schumer to hold up pictures of people that aren't getting their paychecks and comparing it to that is absolutely abhorrent and unacceptable.
Yeah, and not only that, but it takes away from what the real issue is. And listen, it's not just 800,000 people that aren't receiving paychecks. There's a reason they're not receiving paychecks. There's a reason that they are going without, and that's simply because it's not as though the president is unwilling to meet with them or sit down with them. It's that they are unwilling to waver at all. They are unwilling to give him a $1. You know what I mean? Like, they literally, are you gonna give me funding for the border wall? No. See ya. Then if that's your stance, it's not as though Nancy said, "Well, Mr. President, our issue is it's a lot of money, at this time in our government, in our economy, or whatever, or whatever her reasoning would be." But it's not as though she's saying, "How about we meet in the middle at 2.9 million?"
Right.
Billion. You know what I mean? Let's give you 2.9 billion. We'll meet you in the middle. It'll start some of the wall, and then we could talk about this the next time the budget's up next year.
No, they won't even talk about it. The last time that they met, President Trump walked out because
she said no.
She said no, and he said, "Forget it." Then
there's nothing to talk about.
Because hurting Trump politically means more to the Democrats than national security.
But they're not.
They're only thinking about 2020, the 2020 election. They want to recoup their lost power.
But don't you think that that's really hurting them, not him?
They're too stupid to realize it.
What Chuck Schumer did here was he compared people that are going to miss their paycheck for a couple of weeks. Well, it could go on for a while.
Right.
To people that lost their children forever. What paycheck is going to make up for their child's life?
Yeah. Bad optics.
Horrible.
It's Obama's policy being grandfathered into this new Congress. Suicide by illegal immigration. Agenda 21.
Yeah. Absolutely. Listen, we're going to talk a little bit more about Nancy Pelosi because Laura Loomer, she brought some illegal immigrants to Nancy's house, and they jumped the fence, and they set up a tent, and they also hung up posters of children killed by illegal immigrants, and we're going to talk about it. Nancy didn't like it. She had them taken away. But you know what, Nancy? How does it feel having people coming onto your property where they don't belong? Come back to Freedom on Deck. Welcome back, everybody, to FOD, WJJF on your FM dial. Go to FreedomOnDeck.com. Check out all our backtracks. Go like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to BitChute and all that good stuff. I've always been a conservative. Some people say extremely right-wing. And this past week, I got my first firearm.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
So,
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm not going to say what it is. Nobody needs to know.
No, but congratulations for now being put on the NSA's list to people to watch.
Like I wasn't already. Yeah. Like when they saw my name, they were probably like, great.
And it was just ahead of the new New York regulations, too.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, Pelosi's house this past week, something pretty interesting happened. We all know that she has a wall around her complex.
San Francisco.
As I'd like to call it.
Compound.
An investigative, which they call in the article, right-wing investigative journalist, Laura Loomer, who I love, brought a handful of illegal immigrants to the home of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Monday, and they jumped the fence, and they went in, they set up shop, which was a tent, and across the tent in large red letters, they put the word immorality, which is what Pelosi described the wall as. They also hung pictures of victims, dead Americans, of illegal immigrant crimes, and they live streamed the event. Loomer took the time to read each one of the victims' names that she had hanging from the tent and reiterated that these folks were not welcome in sanctuary state California as they were dead. And the controversial journalist, who I don't think is controversial at all, even went to check if Pelosi had locked her front door. According to Loomer, only bigots lock their doors. Because, if you don't want outsiders to come in your home, you must be a bigot. And then when they came to arrest her and ask for her ID, she said that asking for her ID was racist.
That's what she was told.
Right. So
yeah, because asking for a voter ID is racist.
Right.
Right. So Pelosi had them removed, ticketed, not charged. She's so nice.
Because she knew if she would have charged them. Oh.
What a big part.
And, it was amazing. If you watch the video, it's great because you see Loomer, and these are illegal immigrants with her, and they're chanting, Nancy, 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 Nancy. Now, wouldn't it have been great if she pulled in the driveway, had come home to that?
Could have been the...
I love Laura Loomer. She even has a pair of balls in her last name, if you look at it. Loomer.
Yeah.
She kept telling the police officers, I'm so confused. Why do you need my ID? I'm confused. This is racist.
Right.
You see, and what I was saying was Nancy didn't like outsiders coming onto her property that didn't belong there.
Right. You have it was just
for
like,
a reason.
It was just like, I can't think of the gentleman's name off the top of my head right now, but he's from the Daily Caller, and he did a video out here in Southampton on Soros' property,
Soros's wall.
Yep, on Soros's wall. That's right down past the hospital in Southampton,
yep.
right off of Gin
right
Lane.
by us. Yep, right by Gin Lane.
And he literally has a 10-foot wall that goes around his whole property.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, and listen, I've been there. I've been in the property.
And from what I understand, he has security guards there.
Oh, all the time, whether he's there or not. And let me tell you something. You ain't getting in those gates without somebody letting you in.
And I believe somebody told me he also has bulletproof glass.
That I don't know.
See, security cameras all around.
But he's got security cameras about every 20 feet facing the opposite direction. So one faces... south, one faces north 20 feet later. Then 20 feet later, one faces south, 20 feet later, one. So, I mean, he's got it covered so that there's no way. And I'll tell you right now, I'm sure he saw him very well when he was outside them.
In that video, you could even see a watchtower. If you notice, on his building there's like a room that's like towering up. And
it's kind of almost like a lighthouse type of thing.
Totally a watchtower. I'm sure there's a guard in there.
See, Democrats and when you tell them that, they just don't want to hear it. When you tell them, listen, all your elected officials that you support have walls.
Right.
Because they don't want outsiders coming onto their property.
Well, I mean, that's because they're high-profile people, Chet. And
right.
I mean,
they're better than us.
They need to have that because there's crazy people like you right-wingers out there.
Pelosi, we sentence you to be exposed before your peers.
Tear down the wall!
Like the right-wingers that get shot at baseball fields.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those kind of right-wingers.
They deserve it.
Obviously. Listen, come on back. We got Carla D'Addesi, and she's coming from the March for Life over in Washington. Come on back. Welcome back to Freedom on Deck on 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. WJJF on your FM dial. Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island. You're rocking with the best. Chet Martin here with Brian Bro and C.V. Burton. And the featured guest on today's program is the founder of Culture of Life 1972. That's COL 1972. Author of several children's books, is a political commentator who is seen regularly on Fox, OAN, CBN, and is also a contributor at Western Journalism. She fights for America's culture as a radio host on Fox affiliate 1180 AM WFYL out of Philadelphia. Carla D'Addesi. Carla, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all that you're doing to just bring truth and logic and common sense. I call that TLC to our great country.
Well, listen, before we get into the clothing line, which is just absolutely awesome, I want to talk to you about what you're doing right now in D.C. You're attending the March for Life, and this has been going on throughout the week. Now, tell our listeners exactly what you're doing there and what you've been seeing and what's expected.
So the whole entire month of January is just this month that we are celebrating life in the United States of America. So we attended the Stork Ball on Thursday evening. This is a phenomenal event where pro-life warriors are gathering just to talk about what we need to do in 2019 to just kind of encourage everybody to choose life and live life large. That was an amazing event. Guess who showed up and surprised all of us? Vice President Pence.
Wow.
And the second lady. Yes, the crowd went wild. You got a standing O. And of course, it was such an encouragement. You know that he has been a great supporter of life from the time that he was a governor and even before that. So it was great to hear from him. And he gave us words from President Trump, which were really exciting. And then, of course, we have fabulous weather for the March for Life. And thousands of people showed up, and it was so exciting to march together and to hear from Ben Shapiro, who was speaking, and Dr. Alveda King, and just to see so many young kids. You know, young kids are the future of our pro-life movement. We want to leave a legacy of life, so it is really up to these young kids. And I'm telling you, I have never seen so many young kids coming out, high schoolers, college, middle schoolers. People were being bussed in, churches, all of the religious schools. I mean, remarkable, fabulous day. I was going around to a lot of interviews. I was doing a lot of live feeds from the march, a lot of Twitter periscopes, a lot of excitement in the air. We had sidewalk prophets opening up before we marched down Constitution Avenue to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
And then, all exciting stuff. And then on Saturday, I was so honored to speak at the Students for Life event, which was right over the line there in Maryland. And I spoke about keeping Planned Parenthood out of your public schools. Can you believe that
Amen.
Planned Parenthood is in our kids' schools? Like, what is that about? Like, we should have tutors, math tutors, nutritionists, running clubs, chess clubs, debate clubs, lifestyle clubs, but Planned Parenthood, absolutely not.
And Carla, it's so sad that so many hardworking Americans would love to take their kids out of the public school systems, but that's a hard thing to do this day and age. And one of the things that we talk about, if you can homeschool your children, do it. But if you can't, make sure that you're on top of what their curriculum is at school, correct?
Absolutely. So if you know anything about my history, I did homeschool all of my kids from the womb until about 7th or 8th grade. I mean, listen, I would have homeschooled my baby like up until 40 years old, but my husband said, listen, it's time for her to go to school. But our family feels very, very led to put our children into public school to be a bright light there. So we homeschool really well. We hide God's word in their heart. And then I put them into public school where, by the way, I just want to encourage everyone, they are doing really, really well. But let me tell you a couple of the reasons that I think they're doing really, really well. It's because we, my husband and I, have our finger on the pulse like you just mentioned. You cannot just dump your kid actually into any school, public school, Christian school, Catholic school.
Right.
Not a good idea. You are the parent. You are the one that is instilling your family's values, God's values into them. Do not abdicate that right. Do not give it to the youth pastor. Do not give it to the public school teacher. And so we've had a really, we've had a lot of opportunity to really share a lot of light in the public school. And our school still does abstinence first. They still separate the kids when they talk about sex, and they really just do keep it to biology. But why do I know all of this? Because every year at back to school night, my husband and I say, so what are you doing this year for, sex education? And can I look through the history books and see what's happening? You have to be hands-on. And by the way, you have to do it all with a smile on your face. Don't go in cranky. You have to go in winsome, positive attitude. Thank you so much for teaching my kids. We love you. What a great sacrifice you're doing to teach my child. By the way, can I take a quick peek at what's happening in the history book? This is how we go into the public schools and be a light. So we've had a great time in the public school. And yes, it is a viable option, but you have to keep your finger on the pulse.
Now, Carla,
it's dangerous.
Carla, listen, we have Carla D'Addesi on with us, and she's from Culture of Life 1972. Well, that's her clothing line, and I want to get into that right now. Now,
Awesome.
Celine Dion recently launched a gender-neutral clothing line in which she described that your children are not your children and encourages a new world order and pushes that babies should not be in the iconic pink and blue. And I saw some of the commercials, and they're just absolutely disturbing. Tell us about your clothing line and what it's all about, because I saw that it was described sort of as the Chick-fil-A of fashion right now.
Yes. So Chick-fil-A, we are hoping that Cole 1972 is the Chick-fil-A of fashion. We reject everything that Celine Dion is doing with our children. We believe that's harmful not only to the kids, but to the family and to all of society. We firmly believe at Cole 1972 that my children are my children. They are my responsibility. I am going to be their parent and not their friend. And we reject that they're to be raised by the government or by one world order. And guess what? When you go to Cole 1972, you are going to very quickly see that we applaud and celebrate women and femininity, and we applaud and celebrate men being real men. You're not going to see any confusion on our site. You're not going to see girls wearing boys' clothes or boys wearing girls' clothes. We reject that. We think that that's very dangerous to instill that kind of indoctrination into our children. Listen, this is biology. It is not bigotry. Biology tells us that there's XX and XY chromosome, period. There's nothing else. And the best thing that we can do for our kids is to celebrate whom they've been made in the image of God. And that's where we're going to really see life, right? And Cole 1972 is all about pushing our kids to life. My daughters and I, listen, I have 3 daughters. Shopping is our cardio, okay? This is how we get exercise.
Mm-hmm.
But lately, in the last few years, we have felt ostracized, marginalized, because a lot of the brands are supporting organizations that go against our family values. They go against life. They go against gender. They go against Christian principles. They go against American principles. And we cannot, in good conscience, wear their clothes or spend our money there. The kids were teasing and saying, Ma, you have to start sewing. I mean, my gosh, we're boycotting Target because they have gender-neutral bathrooms, and Starbucks. They're giving all of their, a lot of their money they donate to Planned Parenthood and the LGBTQ.
Right.
So they said to me, you're going to have to start sewing. That's a really bad idea, you guys, because I'm very good with a glue gun, but not too good with a sewing machine. So God really brought everybody together to start this fashion line, and it has been a blast. And let me tell you, we did the research. There's 18 million women, teen, tweens, and millennials. That's just the women. I'm not even talking about all of the men that are a huge part of the celebration of life agenda. And of those 18 million women, 9 million of them identify as pro-life. 9 million! Isn't that awesome?
It is awesome. And, it's great that we're talking about this with you and that you're our guest. And I'm sorry that I referred to it as COL 1972. It's Cole 1972, which means Culture of Life.
That's right.
And what we were talking about was that there are options out there. You know, there's actually a phone company now that's for people, for Christians and for people on the right, and there's your clothing line, there's Chick-fil-A, you can go down the laundry lines, healthcare, there's all sorts of things that if you really look, you can live your life through God in everything that you do.
That's right. And we're called to do that, aren't we? We're called to honor him with everything that we do, our voting, our parenting, our choosing our friends, and yes, choosing where we put our money. In the United States of America, where money is a god, you know, we have power there. And when we say to an organization like Target, who went gender neutral with their bathrooms and fitting rooms in 2016, you know what? People can go there. Listen, this is the United States of America, but my family chooses not to because I don't feel safe in your bathroom. I feel like you are not defending my privacy. You know, we don't go there. But the fact is that we still need more people to boycott all of these places so that seriously they go bankrupt. And we need to support people like My Pillow with, I believe, Mr. Lindell, Mike Lindell,
great guy.
Right? And Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A, because we are giving money back to everything that you support, that Family Values supports. We opened a Cole 1972 Foundation. We sponsored the March for Life. We sponsored Students for Life, and we were happy and joyful to do it. We love giving back to those things that create a culture of life, a legacy of life. We believe that life breeds life, and we believe that death breeds death. And we just want to share that it is always in your best interest to choose life. You know, some of our young girls might find themselves in less than desirable circumstances when they are carrying life inside of their body. We still urge you to choose life because that is the best possible choice. And at Cole 1972, we believe differently from the left. We believe that women and men are strong enough, are worthy enough, are noble enough to choose life every single solitary time. And so, again, we just want to breed a culture of life. We reject a culture of death, which we've been living in since 1973. 60 million people have not had the right to life since 1973. Let's get back to 1972 and a culture of life.
We have Carla D'Addesi from 1180 AM WFYL, and the clothing line Cole 1972 is her child, I guess you could say. Is it your family that's involved with this?
Yeah, that's my new baby. Yeah,
that's your new baby.
That's my new baby.
Now, I want to ask you, the president.
Yes.
I don't know if he was your first choice, but from 1 to 10, as far as pro-life, as a president, where do you put him?
25.
There you go.
He's the most pro-life president ever that we've ever seen. We have never had a pro-life president show up to any of our marches, or a vice president for that matter. The last 2 years, Vice President Pence has showed up. Kellyanne Conway has showed up the last 3 years. President Trump, last year, 2018, he streamed in from the Rose Garden. Like, this is a man that really is defending life. And, you know, when you have the leader of the free world defending life, I mean, this is our moment in time, you guys. This is our moment to educate the world that choosing life is the only choice.
Carla, tell everybody where they go and check you out.
Cole1972.com. Please subscribe to our newsletter. And Cole1972 official on all of our social media. Thanks, you guys.
Everybody, that was Carla D'Addesi from Culture of Life 1972. That's Cole 1972. Listen, we're coming back. Facebook suspends Mark Dice over racially motivated shooting. Keep it tuned here. Rock and Roll Sunday with FOD. 94.9 News Now and stimulating talk. It's the only place to be. 3 to 5 here on WJJF. I've got like 3 accounts on Facebook now.
You should just do another one just as a contingency. Have it already set up that we don't have to make one.
So, before I get into Mark Dice, we all know who Mark Dice is, and we talked a little bit about him last week when we were addressing that sad story about the little girl that was shot in Texas, the little 7-year-old girl, and some of his commentary. I posted an article, and I talked to Lee Elsey about this last Monday, I believe, about a story of a 10-year-old transgender child in Canada that was pictured with a
photo shoot. Yep.
A photo shoot with a naked tranny.
Yep. Like, I mean, he did have a loin cloth piece of fabric over, over his
but they had
private.
They had to blur it on
they even
Facebook
had to blur it,
because you could see it.
Yep.
And anyway, they take the picture. The child's name is Queen Lactatia.
Yeah.
That's his stage name.
Yeah.
And the mother was at the photo shoot letting this happen. Now, what I posted on Facebook was I said, the mother should be arrested, and so should the pedophile who I am not referring to as a woman. And they sent me a warning saying that it goes against their community standards.
I just read their community standards recently, and it is so vague. And they even say in their own community standards that they can violate their own standards themselves.
Yeah.
When they see fit.
That they can change them
What's
they can change them at any time without notice.
Now, I requested a review, and they haven't given anything. What do you think? Was it that I said pedophile? Was it that I said arrest the mother? Or was it that this is what I
what
think
do you
it
call
was? I think it was I said I'm not referring to him as a woman.
Right. What do you call a naked man with a child in the same room?
An abomination.
Well, I know that if you were, I know back in the day, if a parent took a picture naked with their child, they'd be arrested immediately. Now, this happened in Canada, but don't forget this is happening here in the States. We just had a transgender child strip at a Brooklyn bar. But I don't hear anyone talking about this.
And that is the craziest thing, because it was stripping, because he was on stage. He did remove some articles of clothing. He did not get naked. And he was being given money.
Bills. Dollars. And then a video comes out with the kid, Desmond, on a couch with a tranny, and they talk about doing ketamine.
Yep.
And he makes a snorting noise.
I always say, I don't want to know about your sexual proclivities. Just keep it out of my face. I don't want to know about it. But the minute you start abusing children or animals, then you got a real problem with me.
And that's what's going on.
And that one with the Desmond on the couch talking about the ketamine and making the snorting sound and all that other stuff.
Sick.
And whatever. Like, how old is that kid? He's
11.
He's 11, right? Yeah. And you're think about that for a minute.
He knows
an 11-year-old talking about snorting ketamine, which means he probably has,
or he's seen it, or he's heard them talk about it,
or he's seen it. Right? If you're hearing how many people talk about doing ketamine and make snorting sounds,
right?
They don't. So he witnessed them doing it, or they allowed him to do it too.
Well, this kid Desmond knows about the culture of strip joints, and he knows about the culture of drug use, and he's 11,
and it's rampant. I'm sorry, you can say whatever you want, you can hate me for what I'm about to say, but it is rampant in the LGBTQ community. Sorry, it is.
Yeah, and some of them call it LGBTQP, which means pedosexual, and it's not being called out enough. What I wanted to get into, and we don't have much time left, but we were talking about this last week with the little child that was used as a political pawn She was a black 7-year-old girl that was shot, and Rep. Sheila Jackson and Sean King from Black Lives Matter organized a rally saying that it was a white person that killed her, and the family was saying it. Meanwhile, they knew that it was a black man that had done this. And then Mark Dice, who we mentioned and actually played some of his audio, was suspended from Facebook for posting about inner city violence following Eric Black Jr., who's the one that shot this little child. Mark Dice, I want to read what he said here, and I'm having difficulty finding it right now. The mother and the family originally told police the shooter was a 30 to 40-year-old white man, but they lied. They knew the man was black and is likely an acquaintance of the mother, which I got attacked for saying on Lee, rather than tell the truth that the mother made up the story and the liberal U.S. media jumped on it. So then he gets banned from Facebook for making a statement that is absolutely true.
Of course.
Yeah, he was just reporting the news.
Well, this is the thing.
Well, you see people that are getting banned on Facebook for simply sharing New York Post articles, the Daily Caller, the Washington Times, ABC. You know, I mean, you can share an article that was from CBS or ABC and simply say something off color or share your opinion of what you think of the story, and immediately not because of the article itself, but because of what your opinion is, you have violated their community standards. And Facebook is basically saying that you don't have the right to speak your mind on Facebook. That is clear.
Facebook and Twitter are trying to create the illusion that there aren't as many conservatives as there really are. By shadow banning us, they are effectually disappearing us. You know, particularly Twitter is even the worst. You know, Jack Dorsey, who owns Twitter, their tagline is, "It's what's happening." No, it's not what's happening. That's your tagline. It's what's happening. It's what you make believe is happening, because you're trying to wish us into the cornfield, you tyrants, you fascists.
And you know, on Monday I was attacked by Dale, who is a listener to Lee Elsey, because I called in and he said I have an agenda when I presented the numbers that 50% of violent deaths occur in America and they're committed by black men. And I thought it's an interesting statistic because 12% of America are black men, which is a low percentage.
And they're true numbers. I mean, he could sit there and say what he ever
said
wants.
It's an agenda, but then Lee read it from the FBI, and guess what the numbers were? 52%. So I was off by 2%, Dale. I don't have an agenda.
Right.
And stop bringing up what I said about the illustrious John McCain back in October. I'm sick of it. Listen, we're going to come back with Josh and Nicole Landers from the Parent to Parent Network. We're going to be talking about Sheriff Scott Israel from Broward County being forced to step down. You're not going to want to miss it. Freedom on Deck. Welcome back to FOD 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk. WJJF on your FM dial. Connecticut, Long Island, and Rhode Island. You are rocking with the best. Chet Martin, Brian Bro, CV Burton. Make sure you go to FreedomOnDeck.com. You can go like us on Facebook. Although I'm banned again. That's all right. You can go and follow us on Twitter. And you can subscribe to our BitChute and our YouTube and check out any of our backtracks. Listen, we're going to open hour 2 of today's program with our monthly contributors from the Parent to Parent Network and the Facebook groups Parents Against School Violence, Josh and Nicole Landers. First of all, hello, Josh.
Hey there, Chet.
And hello, Nicole.
Hey, Chet.
Nicole, I got to ask you before we get started here. Does Josh own any Gillette razors?
Ha ha ha. We are going to stomp out the Gillette razors.
Good for you. We're all growing beards, so I'm not sure whether we should all go for Dollar Shave Club or what we should do. But I'm glad to hear that you're getting rid of the Gillette. So, Josh, let's jump right into the issues facing our children's educational lives. Tell us a bit about the Federal School Safety Commission rescinding the 2014 Obama-era guidance regarding the feds no longer being able to threaten schools for disciplining minorities and what that's all about.
So this was a huge victory. This is something that we've been pushing for. This is something that Nicole and our daughter Tamar went and testified in front of the Secretary of Education. Federal School Safety Commission was put in place by President Trump as a result of the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. This commission was put together to look for different things to do to make schools safer, and one of their recommendations was to rescind the 2014 federal guidance that basically says that minority students and disabled students are disciplined at a higher rate, and that school systems need to fix this. They need to lower their suspension rates and expulsion rates for minority students and for for disabled students. So this guidance was rescinded back in December, and it was a huge victory for a lot of folks because it says that now the federal government is not going to interfere if you are just strictly because you're disciplining students of a particular minority at a higher rate than their white counterparts. If their behaviors dictate it, the discipline can, move forward. It was something that we've been pushing for a long time. We were hoping that it was done earlier, but we now have that victory in place.
Now, Nicole, this kind of ties in a little bit. Our favorite sheriff, Scott Israel, was removed by Governor DeSantis as a result of the majority Stoneman Douglas Commission. What's your opinion on Sheriff Israel's removal? And did you hear him claiming that his removal was purely political?
First of all, yes, we are thrilled. We have lots of contacts down in Broward with Andy Pollack and others who we have watched work very, very hard at getting this accomplished. And we are so excited to see some justice come forward for these families down in Broward and for truth to be acted upon. It's just great. And yes, we did hear what he had to say, and that's completely ridiculous. This isn't about politics. This is about people, and it's about doing what's right. And it's about justice. And it's nice to see a little bit of all these things coming together to do something good in our country for Broward County.
Now, do you think he's the type of guy, or has he filed any type of lawsuit or going through with any movement like that? Have you guys heard anything about that?
I do know that he has made a request through the state Senate to have a review done of the removal because he is an elected official. But it is a Republican-held majority in the Senate. There are lots of folks in the state Senate that apparently did not like Sheriff Israel and the things that he did, the exemptions and exceptions he made with the Promise program and letting juvenile offenders not go to jail for a long period of time. So everything that we're hearing is that this will continue to stand.
Okay, now, Josh, you sent to me that 37 states still have laws and regulations that hurt our children? Your words, not mine. What are these laws and regulations that you're referring to, so our listeners know?
So based on the 2014 federal guidance, the Department of Education cannot establish or dictate law, but they can write guidance letters to the states and encourage them to write laws and regulations in place. And 37 states currently have laws and regulations in place to change their methodology of discipline. And it falls in line with the way that the federal guidance was written. So there's lots of work that we have to do. Now the federal guidance has been rescinded. The federal government can't pressure states and local school boards to influence their discipline policies. But there are 37 states that have laws in place that already enforce these things. So it's time for us to get to work. We've gotten the federal government out of the way of the states. They're not going to be able to pressure or influence the states to manipulate this data. It's now time for us to work to get those laws codified, to get them rescinded, or to get new laws written that actually keep our kids safe. And it re-empower teachers, re-empower principals, give authority back to the administrators within the schools, and take the handcuffs off and let them do what we know they want to do, and do it correctly and properly for our kids, for their safety.
We have Josh and Nicole Landers from the Parent to Parent Network. Now, Nicole, I know I've asked you this before, but I want to rehash this again. So, with the rescinding of the Obama era guidance, now that that's out of the way, that's a great thing. Was the shooting that Nicholas Cruz, the slaughter that he unleashed in Broward County, because of these policies? Was he able to get away with what he got away with because of these policies?
100%, absolutely yes. What's important to understand in this is that there was the Promise program, and birthed out of that program is what we saw take over on a federal level. But this Promise program is part of a mentality on how students were treated, particularly disruptive, violent students, how they were treated inside the system. So absolutely, even though the reports are that Nicholas Cruz was not part of the Promise program as a high schooler, he was referred to the program in his middle school years, although they didn't follow through. The mentality of that program to reduce legal impacts for these kids and not hold them accountable for crimes that they were committing and behaviors that were taking place 100% applied to him. And yes, he was pushed through the system, and they did not discipline him. Much worse, they more or less conditioned him to increasing levels of violence because he knew he wouldn't be held accountable.
Now, Josh, the reason I asked that is because of the wording. It says the feds no longer being able to threaten schools for disciplining minorities. But was Nicholas Cruz a minority? I know is that a stupid question, Josh? I mean, I'm just asking for the sake of understanding this a little more.
No, so the federal guidance was wrapped around disproportionality, which said that there was a disparate impact on minority students and disabled students for being disciplined at a higher rate than their counterparts. The Promise program and the Behavior Intervention Program, which is the two big programs that were operated within Broward County, were a little more intense than what the federal government had in place.
Okay.
They didn't want to arrest any students for a slew of crimes. And initially it was a list of 13 misdemeanors that they would not be allowed to be arrested for. But in addition to that, they had juvenile services employees that were involved to help encourage certain people that were arrested, and to push them through the system and to say, hey, let's give them another chance. Let's give them another chance. Nicholas Cruz had 45 occurrences where police officers from Broward County Sheriff's Department were called to his house.
Yes.
And they did not act. Well, they did not act because he was a student of the Broward County Public School System. And the Broward County Public School System has a memorandum of understanding with the sheriff's office. So this was very political. It was not about safety of children. It was not about protection for the majority of the kids. It was about not arresting students because there was a perception that it would have a disparate impact on their future. Does that make sense, Chad?
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, a lot of what Nicholas Cruz, a lot of what he was threatening was on social media. Now, what do you guys think of, and I'll ask Nicole this, what do you think about schools being able to monitor students' social media?
That's a meaty question.
I'm sure they can anyway, but should they be like let's say this kid obviously was a red flag, right? So should they be paying more attention to Nicholas Cruz?
Oh, absolutely. And I would add that more will be coming out in the near future about Nicholas Cruz in Parkland, but he was a disabled as far as a special needs student. So to me, that already sends up a red flag. But as far as monitoring social media, honestly, for any minority, or not minority, forgive me, any underage individual, I think there should be monitoring. And any underage student, any student that's inside of a school system, I think it's reasonable to say that if they're showing signs, they need to have their social media monitored more closely. Now, we know that kids have all kinds of sly ways to have accounts that adults just don't know about. But I think in general, it's a prudent act to have increased supervision over social media from red flag students.
Listen, for everybody out there listening, it's so important that if your child is being bullied in any way, that you get a hold of Josh and Nicole Landers. And I also think that they would say that if you know anyone out there like a Nicholas Cruz, get in contact with them as well. Josh, Nicole, tell everybody where they can get a hold of you.
You guys can go and visit our Facebook page, which is called Parents Against School Violence at Parent to Parent Network. Our contact information is on there. You certainly can reach us via private message. Our email is info@parent2parentnetwork.org. We would love to hear from you. We're here to help. We want to encourage. We want to inspire hope. And we look forward to hearing from some of you folks.
Everybody, that was Josh and Nicole Landers from the Parent to Parent Network. We'll be talking to him again next month. Listen, come back with us. New Hampshire is introducing a bill to revoke police authorization of deadly force. Is this America we're living in? Come back to FOD.
Time to play the game!
No games played here on Freedom on Deck, but there are games being played over in New Hampshire, especially when it comes to our law enforcement officers. So there's a proposed New Hampshire bill that, get this, would revoke police officers' legal authority to use deadly force during arrests. And this was, I'm reading this from The Blaze, but originally reported on WMUR TV. And as you might expect, some members of the state's law enforcement community are not happy, gentlemen. They are complaining about this proposed bill. Chief David Goldstein said it will make it much more difficult, if not impossible, for us to effectively do our jobs in certain situations. And he is the chief of the Franklin Police Department. Now, WMUR said that the bill was proposed by the Liberty Republicans and that its supporters indicated they don't want to tie cops' hands, they just want to save lives. The bill is HB 218, if you want to look it up, and it's sponsored by Chris True, James Spelon, Kurt Wolper, and Max Abramson. And they are GOP members of the state's House of Representatives. The Blaze on Wednesday didn't immediately hear back from the bill's sponsors in regard to any relationship they may have with the Liberty Republicans, but it's important to realize that the New Hampshire GOP contains a strong libertarian strain, as do the state's Democrats. So what they're doing is they basically don't want police to be able to use weapons when detaining criminals.
Even the Republicans are liberals in New Hampshire.
Yeah, exactly. What a weird time in America that it is for our men and women in blue.
You know what's crazy, especially about this coming out of a state like New Hampshire. January 1st of 2017, New Hampshire, before that, it was passed, but it went into effect January 1st of 2017 that New Hampshire became a constitutional carry state, meaning they did away with their permit licensing. Okay, so before January 1st of 2017, you could open carry freely in the state with no permit. But if you wanted to carry concealed carry, you went down to the local PD in your county or the sheriff's department in your county, right. And you got, it was a quick form that you filled out or whatever, and you paid a fee. I think it was minimal, like $10 or $20 or something. Yeah. And you got a concealed carry permit. Well, they did away with that. They went constitutional carry, and now you can conceal carry. Stick it wherever you want. Stick it where the sun don't shine if that's what you prefer. But a state like that, having that stance on firearms, turning around and telling their police officers that they no longer have the right or the authority to use deadly force when they are the ones first on the scene. It could be a deadly situation. An assailant could be threatening or trying to kill somebody, and that officer, would have the opportunity to save that life.
What do they want to be, like the Brits?
Just sick.
Listen, a nightclub?
It's probably not going to pass, but this is the strange direction. Listen, talk about strange directions. You remember Ma'am from the infamous GameStop video that was all over the internet? Well, he's actually a rapper, and we at Freedom on Deck kind of exposed this, and we want to talk about it a little bit with you. And we're also going to be talking about a previously deported illegal immigrant accused of sexually assaulting an 11-year-old child. Come back to FOD.
Excuse me, sir. What do you think you're doing?
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
I'm handsome while you're pretty damn hard, and Stone Cold T want to take you on a date.
You need to settle down and mind your business, okay?
Ma'am looks like a lady. 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 Woo!
Oh, yeah. Gotta have some fun on a Sunday.
Oh, we keep it classy.
Oh, ma'am.
Oh, ma'am, I love this song.
Oh, ma'am. So, listen. Over the past month, the biggest viral video probably of the year made the rounds on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, Snapchat, BitChute, YouTube, all over the place. And everybody calls the gentleman or sir ma'am. It's just ma'am.
It's ma'am.
No one refers to him by his name. Everybody calls him ma'am. He's in GameStop. He got into an altercation, not with Stone Cold.
Wanting to get refunded.
So they called him sir. They called it.
I just call him a jerk.
So they called him sir, right? And then he gets belligerent.
Yeah.
Actually, kind of frightening.
Yeah, actually.
And the kid behind the counter.
And there is a little boy in the store, which is crazy.
Right, and the kid behind the counter keeps saying, "I'm sorry, sir," and he's like,
trolling.
"Call me sir again. I will show you what a sir is."
He's like, before that you said sir. And he said, "No, I said you guys."
I said you guys. And then the woman says, "Excuse me, sir." And that's where he said, "You need to mind your own business," which we kind of cut up a little bit there with Stone Cold ET. But anyway, it's absolutely insane that I found out that this guy, prior to being this character known as Ma'am, was a rapper.
Yeah.
And kind of a hardcore rapper.
If you heard it, he's pretty good.
Well, it's called, his name was Paycheck Stubbs.
Yeah, not very original name.
Not very original, but right now I want to play the music from Paycheck Stubbs, and we're going to have to beep some things out. But for everybody out there listening, this is the guy from the GameStop video, man. This is actually him, Paycheck Stubbs. Take a listen.
Kill me is blaze. Born and bred, this woman spread like killer bees in a horrid plague. A force of LMCs who skill and steez a scorches for your vessel. Test a hornet's nest. You rooks and shook ones, scared of look ones. Get in a mic, took one, catch a left or the right hook from. These crooks, crawls, and hoodlums. Crooked, ill adult, and Heisenbergs. This cipher's comprised of some of the nicest rhymers, lines, and verse.
All right, so we had to cut it there because I'll tell you, ma'am, he gets gully. I mean, ma'am, he kills it.
He really starts dropping the F-bombs.
Yeah, he does. This is the thing, though, and you guys can all look this up. It's actually from the video on YouTube is called the Southwest Cypher Series, and there's a podcast where they interview him, and he talks about the fact that he's this rapper. Now, here's my question, and you brought it up before we started doing this segment. Is this all show? Is this a gimmick?
Well, put it this way. I mean, it came to me, and I was, because I always try to look at the angles. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking like, he's pretty, ma'am. He's pretty good on the mic. You know what I mean? Like, he's talented.
He is.
He's talented, dude. And I've heard some of the other songs that he's been part of. He actually writes beats and a lot of stuff. And so, when I started thinking about him, I'm going like, why this guy is like really good at what at rapping. And like, why would he stop doing that? And I mean, okay, I guess if he really was transgender or whatever, but why would he stop rapping just because he's transgendering? And then I'm saying like, wait a second. What if this is like all like one big viral video, like knowing that because somebody was filming it. Who was filming it? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Nobody came out and said who it was. Nobody claimed to have filmed it. So could it have been one of his homeboys that was filming it? Like, and they staged the whole thing to make it a big scene. He kicks the box. He starts going off, right? And everything else. He wants corporate, this, that, and the other thing. Because they knew that it would come out that he was a rapper. His music would get obviously, if you look at how many hits that song
it's listening
has gotten,
now,
it's crazy.
And I'll tell you, he's not just a good rapper; he's a good actor. because in that video, if he's pretending, he convinced me. When he says, "Excuse me, it's ma'am."
Oh yeah.
He looks legitimately upset. But then in
He looks like
He-Man. He looks like He-Man.
I think you guys are right. He's creating a viral video, and I thought there was something wrong with it because he doesn't look feminine in any way, except for this dumb wig that he's wearing.
The mom jeans.
Yeah.
But it's not a wig because in the rap video he has
He
the
does have the
ponytail.
hair, yeah.
And you can see in this video, for anybody that goes and looks at it, just look up Paycheck Stubbs and you spell Stubbs Stubbz, and I could go somewhere with that, but I'm not. But anyway, in the video, I mean, he's making the movements like a tough guy. Not like an effeminate woman.
And looks nothing. I mean, he's a dude. I mean, looks no makeup
Right.
on. No, and he's not trying to perceive himself to be anything but a man.
He's threatening to beat up the man in the store. He's tough. He's got big shoulders and muscles.
Take it outside.
That's
He's
gonna
got
be
tattoos all over his arms.
That's going to be his next hit single. I'll show you a sir.
Oh, yeah.
I'll show you a sir. Remember, he tells the guy, "I'll show you. Come outside. I'll show you a sir."
I want a He-Man T-shirt with his face and He-Man's body.
That's the other thing. Do you think like they maybe even because the other thing about this is, did you read that this guy and these? Because in the video there's like 5 other rappers with him.
Yeah,
and you see this. They're in a store.
Yeah,
it's their clothing line.
Is it?
Yes. It's their clothing line, and he's a part of that. Now, do you think that they, being, because you can see they do the printing. CV does this kind of stuff. CV, right?
Yeah.
You're an illustrator. Maybe they put
Don't say that too loudly.
Maybe they put some of these memes out there.
Dude, I wouldn't. I mean, listen, anything's possible.
Because it's still coming out because of the story we're talking about with Gillette.
Yep.
There was just a meme that came out, the best a man can get. Right?
Yeah.
So there's still this is still catching fire.
Yeah.
It was the other day, I'm sitting there at a class for pesticide applicators, which I do, and all of a sudden I see this video and this guy says, "It's the ma'am guy," and I'm like, no way. And then I start looking, and it was him.
Yeah,
you can see it's him. It's his face. There's no mistake.
No mistake. Same person.
And then the interview that he had, I think it's all clever.
It would be very clever.
I think it's all a clever setup.
That's how Frank Zappa's career started. He went on a show on TV playing a bicycle with some sticks, and he's like, "Is this what you do?" He goes, "Actually, I just wrote a symphony."
Do you think he'll go on tour with Feminem? Or the Beastie Mams? I can't get. Listen, I said we were going to talk about the deported illegal immigrant that raped the 11-year-old child. I can't do that right now after this topic, so we're going to do it. We're going to do it on the other. No, not another day. We're going to do it next because we have another segment to go. But I guarantee you that within the next week, we're going to find out that this was all a setup. And all this stuff is going to catch on.
Could be. I mean, listen, where's the album? Because that's one thing. That's the thing. I can't find the whole album. Like I've searched. You have this one song, and there is no album.
Brian is a fan.
So it's yeah, man. Oh, you kidding me? I'm getting a He-Man shirt. I'm gonna get his album.
Yeah, but
ma'am, I can't get enough of him.
Yeah, but that's because it's a mixtape, right?
Well, somebody's certainly mixed up.
All right. Well, anyway, come on back to Freedom on Deck. We're going to be talking about this deported illegal piece of trash that sexually assaulted an 11-year-old child. And also, the United States is approving the arrival of thousands of child brides.
It's what we've always done to let the best of man. Devil without a cause, and I'm back with the beaver hats and Ben Davis slacks. 30-pack of strolls, 30-pack of hoes. No Rogaine in the propane flows.
Man, what a show.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Freedom on Deck. Had a little fun in the last segment. Sometimes you have to, or you'll go crazy. Even with the insane leftists out there trying to destroy America, you have to laugh once in a while.
If you can't laugh, you'll go mad.
That's right. That's what my dad used to tell me. And he was a good man. I miss that man. Just kidding, Pops. Still got that in my head. But listen, Lee Elsey talked about this week, and I think it's important to talk about because we need the wall, right? And we've got this illegal immigrant, POS, who is actually planning to flee back to his homeland of Mexico, and he was luckily arrested in Texas for allegedly sexually assaulting an 11-year-old child. And allegedly, it's not allegedly, and I'll explain why. Jose Manuel Tiscareno Hernandez, they always have like 4 names.
Yeah, it's 4 names.
Had been deported multiple times. How many is multiple? I'd like to know. This is from BizPac Review. Before his
More than 2.
Yes, obviously.
Because there's no wall.
Right. His arrest in Conroe, I suppose, for his alleged sexual assault of a minor who was reportedly only 11 years old when the abuse began, according to the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. Now, when you say when the abuse allegedly began, it probably means he was living with the child, most likely. The 31-year-old piece of garbage was not home when the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office Special Victims Unit executed the search warrant last week for the investigation of aggravated sexual assault of a child at the home in the 400 block of Gladstone. The victim was 11 years old when the abuse started, the sheriff's office said, according to the Courier. During the execution of the search warrant at the suspect's residence, the suspect was not home, but detectives received information that the suspect was intending to flee the United States and head back to Mexico. A second search warrant was executed the next day in a different location, and he was located and arrested by detectives and SWAT and investigators with the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office special agents with the FBI, ICE, which Ocasio-Cortez wants to get rid of, ICE, and the U.S. Marshals Service.
Good luck.
There's another good thing that ICE did. He was planning on heading back to Mexico because he can just cross the border back illegally.
Sure.
and run back there.
Yep. They come over, and I'm not saying that all come over and do this, but they do come over here, and they do commit crimes, and they do run back to their home country, especially when it's heinous crimes of rape, murder, robbery, all types of stuff.
What about what just happened in Holbrook?
Yeah.
With the teenager that was stabbed to death by MS-13 gang members that they say came here illegally.
Correct. And the one of them was deported several times as well.
Right.
And they were going to, I believe it was Huntington High School.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they were 18, 19, and 20.
And 20.
What is a 20-year-old doing in a high school?
Good question.
This deported jerk, he was deported multiple times, and these other illegal immigrants creating all this violence. This is the type of voter base the Democrats, Schumer and Pelosi, want. You sickos. You freaks. You should be deported.
What about in Maryland when the young 16-year-old girl was shoved into a bathroom and raped by a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old that were going to high school? That the 19-year-old was in freshman classes.
Right.
Remember that story?
Yep.
It's a million of these stories, and then the lefties all say, "You're saying that all illegal immigrants are creating all the crime." We're not saying they're creating all the crime. We're saying
we have enough crime in this country.
If they kill just one innocent American, it's not worth it.
It's a stupid argument. It's like me telling a Mexican, I want my criminals in Mexico, and for them to say, yeah, sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
I got into an argument on somebody's Facebook page, and people started jumping in on me, and a liberal in particular, because I said victims of illegal immigrant crime, and he said, well, I like to call everyone people and human beings and not refer to them as illegal immigrants. And he said, what do you think about Iowans that kill and perform mass murders? And he was referring to Pollock in Vegas. And I said, it's a stupid question. So the idea is, because an American committed the biggest mass shooting in the history of the United States, that we should take everyone else's problems, and when they do commit crimes in our country and they're here illegally, we should accept it just like we should an American citizen.
Yeah,
how does that make any sense?
Right.
No one's saying that we don't have our own problems already. We're just saying, why do you want to add on to it? If you were having a party and you were inviting guests over and you were told one M&M in the M&M bowl was laced with cyanide, would you put it out in the middle of the table and not tell anybody while they're all putting their hands in it and eating M&Ms? There's one bad M&M in there. Don't put the bowl out.
I'm not eating any of those M&Ms.
Yeah, but you know, here's the bottom line. Yes, we have crime of citizens committing crime against other citizens in this country.
And too many.
Okay? That does not justify allowing other people that are not citizens of this country to come in and contribute to that number. You know, it doesn't make any sense. And, you know, we kind of talked about it at the start of the show with Nancy about with the walls and everything else and how these elites have that. You know, every home in America has a lock on the front door, the back door. You know, every sliding door has a lock or a stick in it.
But why?
You know what I mean?
Why, Brian?
Because it's there to keep unwanted people out of my house, out of your house, out of your house.
Right.
Donald Trump said, the reason you have locks and the reason we would have a wall is not because we hate the people outside, it's because we love the people inside.
Correct.
And when you've got a disgrace like Chuck Schumer going out...
I like to call him
Schmucky, Chuckles,
Schumer.
When you've got him comparing the government employees that are not getting a paycheck this week to children that have been killed by illegal immigrants, I will go back to this story that Mo Brooks told about Aurelia Mendoza and her 13-year-old granddaughter, Maria Lopez, who were legal Hispanic Americans that were murdered by illegal gangsters from MS-13. The grandmother was stabbed to death, and then the daughter was beheaded.
See, we're not saying... we assume that most Mexicans and most Central Americans are good, decent people, but the good, decent people are not trying to get into our country because they're living good, decent lives where they are. It's the bad ones that want to come in here and take advantage. That's the whole point.
Right. I mean, you gotta say to yourself, logically, if people are running from their country, okay?
Yeah, what are they running from?
There is a certain understanding. Yes, they could be down and out and have nothing and want a better life, absolutely. But there is also going to be a certain amount of people who are escaping. They might be wanted for murder in Mexico, in El Salvador, in Guatemala.
Yeah.
Why do you think they're coming here?
Well,
because they're running from there, because they can come here, they can get asylum. Nobody knows who they are. It's and unless shy of an Interpol warrant for their arrest being placed, the United States wouldn't know that Guatemala was looking for them, or El Salvador, or Mexico, or Honduras, or any of these countries.
The fact is, a larger percentage of the people that are trying to get here are bad, larger than the percentage of the people that stayed in their own country.
Article in Breitbart that I posted up on Freedom on Deck. A rancher in Arizona has found 9 prayer rugs over the last month on his property.
Silence in the media.
Do you think that it's Mexicans using prayer rugs, folks? Yeah. Listen, and what CV said is right. Yes, there are people coming into the country that are running from these dangerous gangs and terrorists. But guess who's following those innocent people? The very people that they're running from. That's the problem.
Yep.
And it's being funded for that reason, right?
Because
absolutely.
That's the voter base that Democrats want.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is becoming a party of terrorism, in my opinion, and it is sad because it wasn't always that way. You know,
it's not the party of JFK, that's for sure.
No, it's not. All right. So come back next week. Same Freedom time. Same Freedom station. We're going to have Steve Deese, and he's got the book Truth Bombs Confronting the Life of Conservatives and What They Believe. And he also has the Steve Deese Show on CRTV. And then we have Gordon Vidal and Christine Sinodi from Justice for All, who are right here on this station every Sunday before us. Don't go anywhere, and everybody have a fantastic day.